Hello, Senior Stoner fans. It's the real Senior Stoner back at you for your Dabx Go Diamond Dab of the Day. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. As always, since I know you're going to enjoy today's video, hit that subscribe button, tell your friends, send a like, and I reply to all the comments. Let's get started with today's interesting topic. How many of you out there make excuses a lot of times? How many of you out there used to make excuses all the time? Well, you know what? We need to learn how to stop making excuses. That's right. Think about that person you know that uses an excuse to get out of everything related to a responsibility or something that they did. The worst part about these people is they do it for a long time, and excuses are deeply embedded in their personalities. So it's difficult, even if you gently try to nudge somebody who constantly makes excuses, because when you nudge someone from their excuse to something else, they're just going to make another excuse. It's a habit. And like all bad habits, excuses are easy. Excuses allow people to box themselves into their comfort zone and think they're okay with their lives. But after a while, people find out that living that way isn't enough. And you can either accept where your life is, that's the excuse person's version of giving up, or you can eliminate your excuses by taking responsibilities for where you are now, and more importantly, why you created the excuse in the first place. So we've got to discuss how we can eliminate excuses in our lives. We need to learn to read between the lines in order to do it. Think about the excuse. Usually, you're using it to mask the real reason why you can't accomplish something. For many, it's a fear of failure. For others, it's a self-esteem issue. And for others still, it's a fear of success, and then they'd have something to lose. So if we're unsure of where the excuses are coming from, we need to ask ourselves, if we were to succeed and accomplish what we want, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then list off every worst case, write it down. And we're likely to recognize a theme. Guess what? That's the issue we need to attack. We need to stop ending our statements with a but. It's a little trick people use that works. Instead of saying something like, I'd really like to, but, you cut yourself off and say, I'd really like to. This triggers your mind to focus on the plans you need to make to reach your goals, instead of the roadblocks that are currently in your way, perceived or not. It's instant motivation. And you got to try to avoid other excusers, let's call them. One of the big things you notice when you step out of your comfort zone is the number of people in your life that are making excuses. So many excuses, in fact, that if you look back on conversations you've had with anybody, my God, you're always complaining and excusing. We all do it. So what if instead we put all that time into doing instead of excusing? What if we stop letting external factors dictate our time? Think of it. Like us, the people we spend our time with might not realize they're making excuses. And you could point it out all you want, but it's a realization individuals have to come to on their own before they can change. Jumpstart a new conversation. Be the one who changes the tune. If you eliminate your excuses, we'll likely encourage those we care about to do the very same. It's no different than B.F. Skinner, observational learning. A lot's to do with genetics, but a lot is to do with your environment. So let's trick ourselves. Depending on our goals, sometimes just thinking about something is overwhelming. You know what I'm talking about. It's especially the case with enormous goals, such as succeeding in a challenging career or building a business from the ground up as examples. It's very easy to become overwhelmed when you don't get started at all. So we got to eliminate our excuses by creating the mother of all to-do list as it relates to the goal. We need to break it down, and we've talked about this 1,000 times, into little kitty pieces, baby steps, and only work on one little baby step at a time. Hide the rest of those steps in a drawer. And when you're done with each step, it doesn't feel like it was such a big deal. You've just moved a step. And then move on to the next, and the next, and the next. And it'll work wonders. And that is how writers write screenplays, authors write books, scientists solve problems. One little step at a time. And soon, we'll be looking back at all those tiny little morsels and little steps, and we'll be amazed at how far along we are in our progress. Try to build excuse-free habits. It's easy to say, hard to do. Feel the fear, but do it anyway. Recognize the excuses you're making. That's right, it's hard to do. Own up to them. And do what you want regardless of what you think is holding you back. Obviously, a lot easier said than done. But it's one of the things that we need to control in our life. And you know what? Taking control gives us so much power. Building habits is extremely difficult, these types of things. Sometimes painful in the situation. But afterwards, it'll be like a shower. It'll be so refreshing and indescribably how much pride you'll have in yourself. You'll want to take the next challenge on, as a matter of fact, because you'll realize that you can do it. And it becomes addictive. Once you start testing your limits and realizing that fun and joy can be found, you'll use your excuses as a signal. Once we recognize our excuses for what they are, we will use them to take an advantage. That's right. We will consider the excuses to be a signal of an underlying problem. And in fact, it's a great way to make ourselves comfortable with what makes us tick. Each time we find ourselves making an excuse, let's look into it further. Find the true cause and then wind it back all the way. The more we practice something like that, the less we're going to hold ourselves back from our full potential. And remember to trust the process. There are times when you sincerely want to do something, but there are aspects of our schedules, lifestyle, workload that conflicts with what we want. But in those instances, you're not in denial or making excuses. You are simply examining the roadblocks in your way. It's when you allow the roadblocks to stay in place and be like a speed bump where you go over it again and again and again. That's when they become excuses. It's when something's really important to us that we start layering on the excuses. And if we immediately turn to a proactive attitude when those situations arise and trust ourselves to think of a solution, we won't have to eliminate our excuses because we won't have any anymore. This has been the Real Senior Stoner, and we have been talking about how we can minimize, if not eliminate, our excuses that we make. You all know what they are. The more I think about this, I think the bottom line is you have to be honest with yourself. That's right. It's tough sometimes to be really, really honest with oneself, but you have to be. You have to say, yep, I know I've been making excuses. I don't need to anymore. And it's a big thing. It's a big win when you do it. Let's take our dab of the day with our wonderful Raw Garden Moonwalker OG diamonds. They are so crystal clear. It's unbelievable, actually. And we're going to have it today with our Dabx Go. Here we go, everybody. We're going out on blue. Cheers. Appreciate everyone. You know what to do. Since you enjoyed today's video, hit the subscribe button, send a like, and I reply to all the comments. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining The Real Senior Stoner. Wow. It's like a bullet to the brain. A brain bullet. Thanks again for being here, everybody. Remember, we can stop making excuses. Cheers.